Spain Handball.
There is a deeply troubling and almost toxic phenomenon that emerges when a sports team is overloaded with an unprecedented level of raw talent. Individual brilliance begins to mask glaring tactical incompetence. Mainstream sports media conditions fans to focus only on the final score, on the graphic that shows Team USA securing victory, on the perfect 5-0 undefeated run in the FIBA World Cup qualifiers, and tells them to celebrate. But anyone with even a basic understanding of basketball spacing, structure, and offensive flow sees something entirely different when watching the game tape against Spain. Instead of celebration, there is frustration, even anger, because what unfolded was not just a flawed performance, but what can only be described as tactical sabotage. Under interim head coach Nate Tibbetts, Team USA took what should have been a dominant, free-flowing offensive showcase and turned it into a disjointed, grinding struggle. For months, the basketball world had been waiting for Caitlin Clark to return and take control as the primary engine of the offense, especially after her explosive showing against New Zealand. The formula was obvious, yet instead of embracing it, the coaching staff reverted to a conservative, veteran-first hierarchy, going as far as benching Clark in the championship game. However, the real issue went beyond the benching. It was how Clark was used when she finally stepped onto the court. In a lineup featuring Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, Clark, and De'Arica Hamby, what appeared to be a dangerous offensive unit on paper quickly became a structural disaster in practice. Each player naturally occupies specific roles. Gray as a ball-dominant point guard, Plum as a scoring guard, Young as a wing slasher, and Hamby as the interior presence. Yet by process of elimination, Clark, the most dynamic playmaker and pick-and-roll orchestrator of her generation, was forced into a power forward role. Instead of controlling tempo and initiating offense, she was pushed to the baseline, setting off-ball screens, standing stationary in the corner, and functioning as a mere decoy. It was a complete misuse of her abilities, akin to turning a Ferrari into a snowplow. This decision not only crippled the offensive rhythm, but also created a significant defensive vulnerability. Playing a perimeter guard at power forward against a physically imposing team like Spain essentially invited pressure in the paint, exposing Team USA to unnecessary risk and turning what should have been a dominant performance into a chaotic and avoidable struggle.
What are we doing here? Caitlin Clark finished the game 7 points, 7 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Only 1 turnover for Caitlin Clark, so she took care of the ball. 7 assists. This was Caitlin Clark making do with what she had. You know, the 7 points, she missed a good amount of 3-pointers. But the 7 assists shows that
the sequence at the 4:23 mark perfectly captures the extent of the coaching miscalculation. The staff actually forced Caitlin Clark to establish defensive position on the low block against players like Awafam, a physically imposing 6 feet 4 inches center. It was a blatant mismatch, one that the Spanish coaching staff immediately recognized and tried to exploit. Yet, in that very moment, Clark completely dismantled the lazy narrative that she is a defensive liability. Thrown into a true David versus Goliath scenario, she didn't hesitate or back down. Instead, she relied on her low center of gravity, anchored herself, and displayed elite timing by stripping the ball with surgical precision, forcing a crucial turnover. It was a flash of her underrated defensive instincts she had to lean on to compensate for being placed in an almost impossible situation by her own coaching staff. But while her individual effort on defense was undeniably impressive, it only further highlighted how flawed the overall system was. If a coach is going to commit to a small, guard-heavy lineup with Clark functioning as a pseudo-power forward, there's only one logical approach: push the pace relentlessly. Turn the game into a high-speed track meet where quickness neutralizes size. Instead, Team USA did the exact opposite. They slowed the game down, walking the ball up the court and allowing Chelsea Gray to orchestrate a methodical half-court offense, playing directly into Spain's disciplined defensive structure. The result was a chaotic, disjointed offense with no rhythm or spacing. Players stood stagnant, the floor shrank, and possessions devolved into forced isolations. Talents like Kalia Copper were left to drive into packed defenses, while De'Arica Hamby had to rely on heavily contested post-ups just to generate something resembling offense. The core issue was simple. The team's primary offensive engine was being neutralized. When Clark was pushed into the corner without the ball, the entire structure collapsed. Her absence as a playmaker didn't just reduce her scoring, it crippled the team's ability to create efficient, high-percentage shots. Despite all of this, she still managed to deliver a stat line that speaks volumes about her basketball IQ. 7 points, 7 assists, a steal, a block, and only 1 turnover. That assist-to-turnover ratio, especially in such a chaotic system, is the clearest indicator of elite decision-making. Even in limited opportunities, she led the team in assists, consistently generating advantages whenever she was allowed to initiate offense. With just a bit more finishing luck from her teammates, those numbers could have easily ballooned into a dominant double-double performance. Ultimately, every moment she touched the ball revealed the same truth. The pace, creativity, and structure that Team USA desperately needed were all right there, waiting to be unleashed.
7 points, missed a few open threes. Easily could have been 13-7. Easily could have been 13-7. But that's not the way the cookie crumbles. Shout out to Jim Carrey. Caitlin Clark in the first half today, 5 points, 4 assists, 0 turnover.
In one of the most jaw-dropping moments of the entire tournament, Caitlin Clark grabbed the ball near her own baseline while the rest of Team USA were preparing to drift into yet another slow, predictable half-court possession. But while everyone else was easing into position, Clark's mind was already operating several steps ahead. She instantly spotted Paige Bucher sprinting down the floor in transition and, without even taking a dribble to set herself, launched a perfect 70-foot full-court pass. The ball cut through the air with precision and landed directly in Bucher's path for an effortless finish. That single play captured the essence of Clark's brilliance, the rare ability to convert defense into instant offense in one motion without hesitation. It was exactly the kind of fast-paced, high-octane basketball that Team USA should have been playing from start to finish. Yet, instead of embracing that tempo, the offense repeatedly collapsed into stagnant, disorganized possessions. Even the commentators couldn't ignore it, describing the system as freestyle, as if players were simply improvising without structure. And when those broken possessions inevitably reached their weapon, crossing half-court, she rejected the screen entirely and stepped back into a deep, heavily contested three-pointer from well beyond the arc, nearly from the often decide games. She was constantly active, relentlessly pursuing the ball, and looking to create extra possessions for an offense that desperately needed them. Even within a flawed system that minimized her role, she found ways to inject energy, creativity, and efficiency whenever she touched the ball, once again proving that the true engine of Team USA's offense was never the system itself, but the player they failed to fully unleash.
It doesn't look smooth at all. It doesn't look like there's a rhyme or reason to anything. A lot of freestyle offense. Even the announcers made note, like the offense just looks like they're freestyling out there. Looks like they're just throwing you-know-what at a wall and hoping it sticks.
Watch the anticipation and competitive fire on full display as the ball is momentarily fumbled, secures a steal, and transforms a broken sequence into an immediate fast break opportunity for Team USA. That kind of relentless motor, constantly hunting the ball, refusing to stand still, is what separated a passive role player from a true generational catalyst. Even in a system that often tried to sideline her impact, Clark refused to become a spectator, injecting urgency and energy into every possession